Good evening, everyone. Welcome, everybody. Our board president, Neil Goldman, is joining us in remotely today. So welcome. And like to get started, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is our regularly board meeting, September 22nd, 2022, first day of fall. And with that, we have a motion to adopt the agenda.
A motion.
I'll second.
And Eileen, would you
Sure.
please lead us in the pledge?
Please stand. Place your hand on your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's been a while. So I have a motion, I believe from John, to adopt the agenda, and a second from Roger. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. First order, any comments from the public? Wendy?
I have no comment.
Thank you. And so tonight we have a public hearing for the textbook and instructional material compliance for 2022-2023. Blake, any comments with regards to this?
I was actually gonna defer to Eileen. Are you?
So this is an annual public hearing that we hold to ensure that all of our students have the resources they need, the textbooks. And that would be for every student at every grade level. So tonight we put forward that we do have textbooks and resources for all of our students in Wiseburn. I don't see the list, I think. This is also available on our website at Wiseburn USD. So each of these books are available in our schools from math, science, history, English language arts, and our foreign language. You won't find a textbook for PE, obviously, and that's our thing, but I can assure you that also in music, we not listed there because it's not a formal adoption. We do have music books for our students as well.
Dr. Harbeck, do we have to mention the use of Writer's Workshop as a curriculum?
We do not have to, but we absolutely, as a supplement, are using Writers Workshop strategies to support our Wonders and our Houghton Mifflin Holt adoptions at the middle school, both. And Reader's Workshop is coming in also at our middle school.
And are these the same textbooks that we used last year?
They are the same textbooks. The only difference you see up there is our new science adoption. So we have Elevate in our K through 5, our TK through 5, I'm sorry, our K through 5. And our 6th grade has STEM scopes, and they've both been launched just recently in September.
Thank you. I believe, Wendy, we might need a roll call on this one.
Dr. Goldman,
It's
public hearing. It's public.
Yeah,
we're opening it. We opened it at 6:06.
Do we need it?
I don't have. No,
Okay.
just opening it and closing. Yeah.
Okay.
Stated time.
So,
Because we'll do the agenda item.
right. So that's it. Mr. Martinez, I think we just need to close the
Close it.
public hearing at 6. So wait. Unless any comments.
Yeah, do we have any comments? Any comments?
Public can comment too.
I do not have any.
No.
So I guess open at 6:06.
6:06.
Close at 6:08. And I think we have a special presentation from Ms. Sarah Nitzos regarding student achievement. I think before she comes up, any comments, Blake?
No, I just want to thank Sarah for the work. I know, her and Eileen meet a lot, but really Sarah has spent a lot of time extrapolating the data, disaggregating the data from our SBAC scores and many other, tests and assessments that we offer here in the district. So, Sarah really is our data guru and really appreciate, the time that you put into this, Sarah. Looking forward to seeing the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of the school board, members of cabinet and the community. As Dr. Silver said, my name is Sarah Nitzos, and I would like to talk to you about our achievements and assessments this year. Next slide, please. Tonight, I'm going to give you an overview of our general assessment program, then go into our 21-22 state testing achievement data, then look at some other metrics, and then take a view of where we're headed. Next slide. As always, we like to talk about our pillars because while state testing data doesn't seem to fit into our pillars, it most certainly does. It affects every single one of our pillars, and all of those pillars in our LCAP are reflected with data that also links back to our state testing. So we have several different types of assessment that our students undergo. If you could click for me, Jason. I try to be fancy with some animation this evening. We have our formative and diagnostic assessment. Those are the assessments that the teachers give in their classrooms in order to get information about their students and their progress on all of the different subjects they're teaching in class. Interim benchmark assessment is our STAR assessment data in both reading and math. We use that as kind of a post along our road to success. It allows us to gauge student achievement along the way and grade level mastery. Okay. And finally, our summative data, that would be our state testing, that it happens one time a year. Takes about 4 to 5 days to complete. And the last time we completed it was just this past May. How is all of this data used? Well, in many, many ways. We use this data locally for interventions that happen within our schools. We support student-centered learning. Performance Matters is our platform that's connected to our student information system, PowerSchool, and it allows us to really dynamically look at our data down to the student level, as high as the district level, and parse it out however we need to. The teachers have access to it, the administrators have access to it, and as district administrators, we also have access. We use this information in our LCAP goals, and it's publicly facing in the California dashboard. The California dashboard currently only reflects 2014 to 2019, and we are being told that it will reflect up to 2022 by the end of the year. So let's start with what are you talking about when you say state testing data? The California Assessment for Student Performance and Progress is referred to as the CASP. The CASP is the California Science Test. When we are looking at CASP, we're looking at English Language Arts and math. Our 3rd through 8th grade population takes this, as well as our high schoolers. In high school, it's taken in 11th grade. The CAST is slightly different. Only 5th graders, 8th graders, and high schoolers take that assessment. In 5th grade, it's a culmination of everything they've learned, all the standards starting in kindergarten. In 8th grade, it's a culmination of 6th through 8th. And in high school, it's a culmination of 8th through 11th. In 21-22, there were a few changes that took place with the CASP testing. The multiple choice section, the computer adaptive portion in language arts and math, was cut in half. Statistically still relevant, however, it provided fewer opportunities for the students to show mastery in the different areas. Parents do not get domain performance scores. They do see an overall level, an overall performance level, but they do not see the data broken down by reading and writing and listening. So that is definitely a change. I've had quite a few parents asking me where that data is. Unfortunately, it's not provided by the state this year. The performance tasks, where students take all of their knowledge to bear on a real world activity, had no changes. There were no changes in ELA or math. And the California Science Test as a whole had 0 changes to it. Data examination. Everyone sees all these beautiful charts and they go, yes, that is the data. But data examination is actually quite messy because you look at the data and you go, huh, well, what about this? And you go down another loop. And then you ask yourself another question, which leads you to another loop. So while we're going to talk about some data points, you're going to have questions, which adds to our tangle. So just keep in mind that data is a very messy process. Next slide. When we're looking at achievement levels, we're really looking at 4. I will never add animations to my slides again. There are 4 achievement levels. There's exceeding the standards and meeting the standards. When we examine our data, we really look at those two together. Exceeding and meeting. That means they met grade level standards or they exceeded those standards. So we examine those together. However, we parse out nearly met, students who are just on the cusp, and students who are not met, because we really want to make sure that those groups are addressed individually. This is our trajectory from 2014 to our current standing for our CASP ELA, English Language Arts, achievement. We really want to see that blue bar increase and the yellow and red decrease. Those yellow students are those that are just on the cusp of achieving grade level standards. The blue bar is the exceeds and meets. We're looking at 2018-19 and 2020-21. It's important to note that the students in 2021 who took this assessment as 8th graders last saw this assessment when they were in 5th grade. Students who took it in 7th grade last saw it when they were in 4th, 6th grade last saw it in 3rd, and our elementary students had never seen this type of assessment in its entirety. They'd seen pieces of it, but had never sat for the entire exam. ELA was down in 2014-15 and rose and continued to rise. We believe it will continue to rise again. It's important that we always keep our eye on our subgroups to ensure that all of our students are performing at the best level they possibly can. Your eye will most likely be drawn to the low achievement level for our English language learners. It is super important to note our redesignated English language learners. Those are our students who have achieved a certain level in both the English language proficiency exam as well as local measurements to show that they are ready to graduate from our English language development program. So every year, all of our students who are really working so well and so hard and are showing that amazing growth are lifted out of that English language population and are placed into the redesignated population. You can see that our redesignated English language learners are showing almost 0 achievement gap. Our English language learners continue to be an area of focus, and our ELD teachers are really working with this. I wanted to note the school closure for 2019-20 just because it is a black hole of data for 2 years.
It's not that we didn't have, we had school during those times, but not testing.
Yes, it's a black hole of state testing data. We have local assessment data, but not state testing data. I'm sorry, thank you for the clarification. This is our math data. Again, we want to see that blue bar increase, the yellow and red decrease. Okay. In comparing overall, we started at 37% in 2014 and we grew. We saw a little bit of a decrease. We really believe we will continue to grow again. We saw an increase in our red and an increase in our yellow. This is not dissimilar from what we're seeing across the nation. We don't have California comparison scores at this point. We're waiting for that to be released. But the NAEP, the National Assessment for Academic Progress, which is a national test that's taken by many students, is showing an almost exact decline in math. Math is something that will be a significant focus going forward.
Remind me what grade levels are in this data.
Yes, 3rd through 8th, actually 3rd through 8th grade, and then our 11th graders at the SLC as well, our Success Learning Center.
Okay, so this is not Da Vinci, this is
This is FLC. This is Wiseburn as a Anza 138, Dana SLC.
Got it, thank you.
Of course. Here's those subgroups broken down. Again, your eye will be drawn to English language learners.
Sarah,
Yes,
you said these test scores include SLC. Was SLC included in these scores back in the last time the tests were taken in 1819, or is that new?
no, in 2019-20, the law shifted that wherever the student's primary enrollment lay, their test scores also resided.
As opposed to their homeschool. So we have, because we have students from various districts in the consortium, so in prior years it would go, if they came from Torrance, for instance, their scores would be counted in Torrance's scores, right?
And we have currently 35, 40, I don't know the numbers, so about 35 students in SLC.
I believe it's about, from last year, the 11th graders numbered about 12, which is one of the
That's 11.
11th graders. So 11th graders are what's reflected here because they are the ones who took the state testing data. There were about 25 to 30 students at SLC, but only 11 of them took the test. That's one of the reasons you don't see special education called out as a subgroup on any of these, because it's such a small population, it would really be singling out students and would be very uncomfortable to single out students with that data.
But they're right now with our SLC, they're aggregated to our district as opposed to say, I think we have 9 districts. Again, looking at 9 districts in their SLC.
Possible, yeah.
Isn't it right?
Maybe 5 right now.
So depending on prorated percentages, right, we may have 2 or 3 that are Wiseburn and the rest are with other districts.
Correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, no, it just helps me understand like the aggregation of data.
Yes.
Okay.
Wanted to make sure we covered all of our assessments. This is our science test. As we just heard from our public hearing, we adopted a brand new science series that is more in line with the NGSS standards, which is what the CAS test is based on. So we're looking to see a dramatic growth there. Let's go on. Let's go on and look at how all of this data stacks up when we look at our formative and diagnostic assessment. This is a lot to unpack, so I'm gonna break it down for you. What I did was I looked at our ST Math data. ST Math is run by the Mind Institute, and they have a huge research facility, and every year they do this kind of analysis with every student across the nation who uses ST Math. Well, that data is lovely, but what does that mean to us? So I took their research and how they do their correlation study and brought it to Wiseburn. This looks at every 3rd through 5th grader who had any progress in ST Math. By progress, I mean they have a syllabus for their grade level. If they did 0 to 49% of that grade level syllabus, they are reflected in the bottom bar. If the child completed 50% or more of that grade level syllabus, they are reflected in the top bar. That top bar actually reflects 48% of our 3rd through 5th graders. So not an insignificant number.
What's the big bar that's there?
Exactly. So that big bar is indicating the delineation between met and exceeded. Students who completed 50% of the syllabus or more were much more likely, about 65% more likely to meet or exceed standards. One of the questions we always get when we look at this data is, well, isn't that just the kids who love math? Because of course they're going to complete 50% of the syllabus and then they're going to do great on the test. But that top bar represents almost 46, 47, in the 40% of our entire population for 3rd through 5th grade. So it's a pretty broad range of students. I actually did this analysis on 2 classes where out of all of the students, only 2 children had not completed more than 50%. And I found that of both of those classes, which were varied degrees of all the subtypes represented, only 4 children did not meet or exceed standards. So ST Math has a huge impact, and we're looking forward to improving our syllabus progress in our classrooms.
Sarah, could you just give a quick, I mean, because we talk ST Math, but just give a little bit of a quick overview as to what ST Math really is, just for the sake of clarity.
So for everyone at home, it's Gigi the Penguin. But for everyone who's not familiar with Gigi the Penguin, it is an experiential math product where students start out with symbolism, where blocks are representing the numbers, and then it moves gradually towards implementing the numbers and the symbols. So students are playing with math. It's very rooted in our CGI math principles that are happening in our classrooms and pairs very nicely with what the teachers are teaching. So students are working with, how does this puzzle fit together? And then, okay, now it's not just a puzzle. Now there's numbers attached to it and there's mathematical symbols attached to it. One more. So then I said, well, if that happened with ST Math, what does it look like with our local benchmark? We use STAR, Renaissance STAR, and I wanted to see how Renaissance STAR correlated with CASP ELA. So a couple of years ago, I met with Bill Saunders and we completed this correlation study together on our 2018-19 data. And then we had to take a hiatus and now we have it back. So what I did was I took every single child who took the STAR reading assessment and had a score in the system, and every child who took the CASP ELA assessment, which was 1,662 children. And I correlated them. So if you got a 4 on STAR and a 4 on CASP, you were an even number. You landed in the even category. If you got a 4 on STAR and a 3 on CASP, you landed in the off by 1 level. Research tells us that if you can get into 75% correlation, you've got a pretty good measure there to determine student progress. We have a 95.33% correlation. Now, taking into account that those are wide swaths of achievement. There's exceeded, met, not met, and you can still be off by 1 level. However, STAR reading is a pretty good measure of where our students are going and how they are achieving grade level mastery. So then I thought, well, we've had STAR reading for over a decade. Will STAR Math stack up the same? Because STAR Math just came to town. So I did the exact same analysis, and there were 1,660 children in that data measure. Go ahead and hit the button for me. 94.36, far outpacing that 75%. So we feel pretty confident that STAR reading and STAR Math will give us the information we need to help make impacts for our students.
Sarah, can you explain the correlation?
All right, what does this mean for our future? Let's look ahead. For teacher supports, we're continuing the weekly teacher collaboration time, or the TCT. We're working with specialists to support various measures going on. We're looking for our professional learning days and what we're going to put into place to assist our teachers. We're looking at our data and assessment schedule, making sure that we planned. If you don't plan, you plan to fail. So we really want to make sure those assessment times are set up properly so that teachers have time to analyze the data and really understand how to take the next steps. For the administrative support.
Sorry.
Sorry.
For the weekly teacher collaboration, because we use a lot of acronyms, and I'm just wanting to maybe get some clarity. I mean, maybe that's you that could just clarify what that is.
The teacher collaboration time was started just last year.
2 years ago.
And in our elementary schools, TK through 5, and the teachers work together in a collaborative space at grade level to discuss weekly plans, learn new strategies for their classrooms. It's about a 45-minute period, and it's while their students are out at a PE lesson with a credentialed PE teacher. It's a great gift of time for our teachers, for them to plan and to align their practice.
No, thank you. For the administrative supports, the principals have the principals work group, which meets monthly in order to focus on the goals for their site. We have our how-to workshops, which kick off and culminate each school year. And we have our educational technology and student data access. Each of our principals have access to our various programs, as well as Performance Matters, where all the data is located. So if they ever have any questions about data, they have that, and they also have. We're looking forward to school principal presentations starting in October, in just a few weeks, so that we can really see how this plays out at our school sites. And with that, I thank you very much and ask if any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a wonderful presentation. Any questions from my colleagues?
Just in general, thanks for the report. Obviously, the data analysis that you do, as well as the data collection and so on, is wonderful. Really appreciate that. It's a huge benefit to be able to see this information. In general, do you like, are we looking at a lot of learning loss or learning hibernation or whatever you want to call it from the pre-pandemic to now?
Thank you for that. I haven't heard learning hibernation. I like that because
It's made up.
it evokes the image of it reemerging. And I think that's 100% accurate.
Uh-huh.
I think that is the right way to describe it. We did see a bit of a hibernation, but I think it's just that, it's gonna come back.
Mhm.
And our teachers are working very hard to help bring students back into the fold, remind them how it is to be in class, and to remind them how it is to be a learner. So, and our students are working hard as well. We're gonna see them come out of that cave.
Mhm. Thank you, yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Just overall test taking skills, right? And are we also looking at, because in your presentation, Sarah, you mentioned that some of our students, this is the first time they even take the test. So there is that just familiarity with format. I know back in the high school days, just practicing for your SATs, one of the typical things that you would always want to do is at least know the instructions, the directions, and you would see automatic test scores go up just because students, knowing the process, had more time. So they also gain that confidence with those tests. So is there something that we can do to help without doing a full-on test, like an orientation type for our students to get them familiar with the type of test, so that there's a comfort level walking in to those tests? Is that something that we're looking at doing?
Thank you for that. I'm only smiling because I don't want to steal from the principals. But the state has provided what's called IABs, which are instructional assessment blocks. They're mini tests. They're set up exactly the way the state test is set up, only in small fashion. So they're not sitting for 4 days to take the assessment. They might take the fractions block, or they might take the listening block, so that they are getting that familiarity and they are understanding how the test works. That did take place last year, but there were so many other factors happening last year that I can't speak to the consistency, but I know that there is a plan for that this year.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Dr. Goldman, any questions?
Are you able to hear me?
Can't hear you.
You cannot hear me.
I like that he has his hand up.
I think he's frustrated that
I
we
know.
It's okay. It's just I can't share the question, so it's okay.
Can anyone
Chat to what?
call you?
Can you send him a chat, Neil?
I'll ask one of the good questions.
Yeah.
Today. And I'll steal Joanne's term, loss hibernation.
Hibernation. I love it.
So I saw the test results, and obviously we had the 2021 year or 1920 year that we have no data, and then we saw it, and that's pretty clear. What do we do to make sure that we don't lose those kids, if you know, right? What are some of the programs that we have in place to make sure that we do not lose those kids?
Dr. Harwick, you want to speak to that? Because I know you're working so hard with that.
And I think, in talking to Dr. Goldman, on the phone yesterday or on Zoom, one of the questions that he had is kind of along those lines too, was really looking at learning loss, over the last year, and what specific tools are we using, and what strategies might we be using, what interventions might we be using that's helping support that, that hibernation, if you will. Did I get it, Dr. Goldman? All right.
We offer, of course, so many resources to our students, both ST Math and those sorts of things that are online, 24/7 access to these programs at home.
We also have a high emphasis on multi-tiered systems of support, focusing on our tier 1, which is in the classroom. The very first instruction is our most important instruction. And to bolster that up, we've offered a block of time this year called When or What I Need. And the principals will be back to talk more about that, but the focus is that each child has a different need in the classroom. Some need enrichment, some children might need more time on sounds. It just depends on the child. So we're working in September for the teachers to get to know their students and get their needs, and then launching in October in a more formal way to have our win time in the classroom. We also have blocks of math and blocks of English language arts time identified during the school day, so that we protect it, so we know it's happening, and the students can count on a regular basis, as well as our staff. Along with that, teacher collaboration time we spoke about. Also, our principals are meeting monthly to strategize. We do have tier 2 and tier 3 intervention going on as well. This is where we get more specific with the kids' needs. That can happen during win time for tier 2. Tier 3 is a little more substantial for a smaller group of students, and that happens outside the classroom with what we call a response to intervention teacher, RTI. And that has a special set of materials separate from what goes on in the classroom that supports what goes on. It's not a homework club. It's really an emphasis on a skill that that child needs to focus on.
Thank you. So I got it right. The WIN program is going to address the learning hibernation. Right.
Yeah, smaller groups, really focused content and curriculum, and to make sure that those gaps are addressed. Our STAR program also provides a skill breakdown so that teachers can get a skill breakdown of what their overall class looks like, as well as smaller groups, and what skills are needed in order to advance to the next level based on the science of reading, so that the teachers can really dig in and address those very minute, not minute, skills like long A sound, to really make sure that they're catching all of those little foundational skills that might trip a child up a bit further down the road.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah, I know Dr. Goldman was also wondering, and I believe we have it already on our calendar of presentations, but how you'd be able to present STAR data throughout the year, because I know we're doing these benchmarks. Can you just explain what your, kind of timing on that, and when we might be able to see those presentations, what to expect from that?
Yeah, we will be taking the STAR assessment at regular intervals. However, the next big data point will be at the end of the first semester. So I'll probably be back at your pleasure, of course, around February. And then after that, our next one would be towards the end of March. So right before spring break time. And then we'll have a pretty decent picture based on our correlation data of where we're headed for CASP data. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it was, I think we got a thumbs up.
There he is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I have just a question. So I know, thank you, Sarah, for addressing the missing special education students in the blocks in there. But can you just talk a little bit more about how we're assessing those students in comparison to the students who maybe, are they getting additional accommodations, and how is that working for students with special needs?
That is an excellent question. Thank you. So when a child has their IEP, all of those different accommodations are called out, and the state provides a myriad of accommodations that can be supported on the CASP testing. There are also accommodations that can be put into place on our STAR assessment data. Additional time, additional setting. There are over, I don't want to overshoot it, but I believe there is close to 100 different accommodations that can be put into place for CASP assessment. There's also a separate assessment called I call it the CAA, the California Alternative Assessment, that can be given if a child has significant needs. We need an alternative way to demonstrate their knowledge and progress.
And so is that data typically aggregated with the data that you showed here, or how is that?
That data is kept separate unless you have a subpopulation of more than 20 students. Then that data is aggregated, but there's also a penalty from the state if you go over 1% of your students taking the alternative assessment. We've always stayed below the 1%, and therefore that number has never been calculated into our aggregate score. But those students do receive progress reports as well, and they do it to show the areas of growth and areas of need.
I want to just share to Mr. Martinez, I know you had the question about, what are we doing with strategies, towards the hibernation, or addressing this hibernation or learning loss. And I think it's not one particular strategy. You know, it's the system in general that we want to work for the students and work on behalf of the students. And so when we look at our, you know, from our ADCO meetings, where, you know, where it's administrative council meetings, to our principal work groups, where we're creating agendas, creating plans, and that translates down into the guiding coalition meetings at the school sites, and that goes to our TTTs, our teacher collaboration time. Everything's sort of aligned, and we're able to focus. And then you have that with math blocks, and then your English blocks, and then you're pulling the data out of the various assessments and class time activities. You're able to analyze that data and then evaluate that data in a setting that exists. So you have the principal work groups that have a setting that can analyze data. You have your teacher collaboration guiding coalition, so they can analyze that data as well. So it's constantly trying to develop these settings on the school sites and in our district where we're looking at data and responding to it. A byproduct of that, of course, is win time, what I need time, where then, you know, you're able to support students with what they need. You're able to more individualize some of the work and the approach to students in math, English primarily, ELA and math. And so I think it's all of those systems, or well, the system at play that's going to lead to the growth, of course, with some of these added benefits this year, or added yeah, it's a benefit. Sure.
If I may, one more thing. To any of the families watching at home, you can find your student score reports on our PowerSchool website. You received a letter inside your report card envelope that had your access code and your ID. If you don't have that, please contact your school secretary and they'd be happy to provide.
Sarah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right, next item is district updates, and it's Weisburn USD and Da Vinci partnership. And Dr. Goldman, do you have an update here?
May not have sound.
And can you-
I logged back in. Can you hear me?
No sound.
There's definitely
I can
precedent.
call them.
So,
He's saying no update.
no update.
No
Okay. All right. From the board, now let me go back to Dr. Goldman. Just kidding. Rebecca.
You still can't hear me. You still can't. No.
You, Nelson. So. Let me go back up here. Sorry. So what happens when you try to take notes? On the November 8th, 2022 ballot, our community will be asked to vote on Measure EE, which is the local Weisburn Unified School District bond measure that is designed to protect our outstanding quality of education and property values by ensuring teachers and students are in the safe, modern, and up-to-date classrooms and labs that they deserve. All Measure EE funds stay local for Weisburn schools with strict accountability and citizens oversight. In this era of uncertain federal and state funding, passage of the bond will provide our local schools with much needed funding to retain our quality teachers and improve our campus safety and do a whole variety of other things. So I'm proud to co-chair the bond committee and just encourage folks to keep an eye out on the November ballot for that. And a yes vote will ensure that Weisburn maintains its educational excellence over the next decade. And you can learn more about Measure EE on our website. Yes, on ee4weisburnschools.org. And I'm also happy to talk to anyone who has questions or would like more information about the measure. We've been going around and talking to folks in the community, but please don't hesitate to reach out. I also wanted to congratulate WEF, our Weisburn Education Foundation, on their wonderful parent party, Roaring Back, that took place last weekend on September 17th at the Manhattan Beach Studios. It was really well attended and such a fun event. Thank you to all of the corporate and small business partners who supported the event, and thank you to all of the WEF board members who volunteered their time tirelessly to make that event happen. I know it's something that they've been working on for a number of years that they've wanted to bring back, and it really was a wonderful evening for all of our schools and teachers, students, community to be there and get back together in person. So thank you, WEF. I would also encourage everyone, if you haven't already, to contribute to their annual campaign, which is going on right now. WEF supports our music and arts programming, our STEM programs, healthy lifestyles programs like our elementary PE program, and the teacher innovation grants each year. And so
It's really important that they get the support from the community. I think they provided something like $200,000 to the district last year across all of the programs that they supported, which was incredible, and we hope that they will continue to do that. Finally, I also had the privilege of attending back to school nights at Cabrillo and 138th Street schools these last couple of weeks. And I know we're just a month into the new school year, but I'm so looking forward to all of the things coming back. The PTAs have been trying to provide for our students that folks have missed the last couple of years. I'm looking forward to a great school year. I know Cabrillo's in the middle of their fall fundraiser. So it's just that time, right? Get things going for our schools and our students. It's really wonderful. And so thank you to all of the folks who volunteer their time for the PTAs to help make our school sites, what they are and are giving their time for our community. So thank you very much.
Dr. Goldman too, just so that you know, I believe that you're actually audible outside of the boardroom. So just so you're aware that I believe that you can be heard on.
We just can't hear you.
We just can't hear you in the boardroom.
You can't hear me still. Okay, thank you.
He said, okay.
Yes, thank you, Nelson. I have one comment for today. I'd like to thank board colleague Rebecca here for being our co-chair of the Measure EE Bond campaign. It is no small feat and time and energy and effort. So thank you for all the work you have done and all the work you're about to do. As the November 8th is still a ways away, but definitely thank you.
50 days of counting.
There you go, that's right. So I'd definitely like to encourage everyone in our community to support the bond campaign, the bond measure. It's incredibly important for our overall school district and our students, our teachers, and our facilities. And I do encourage everyone in the community, should they have questions with regards to the bond, to definitely reach out to me individually, whether it's an email or phone calls. You will be seeing me as well at different locations and venues. I'd love to share our thoughts as what our plans are with the bond. If you haven't heard about it already, like to be very visible with everything that we're planning with regards to the bond campaign. Dr. Silvers is also very active. So thank you, Dr. Silvers. Blake, thank you for all your time, energy, and efforts with regards to the master plan, all the work that has gone in the past 2 years to actually get us to this point. Something that the district and the board as a whole has really put a lot of time and energy and effort into. So we're very much looking forward to it. So that's all I have. Thanks, Roger. Joanne?
Building on what Roger just said, I wonder, do we have the master plan posted on the website?
It's both on the school district website and also on the Measure EE website. But yes, I mean, has a lot of that.
I think that's important for us to mention in this meeting then too, that the master plan that is fundamental to how we define the appropriate use for a new bond and how we hope to improve the district for our students and community with the new bond. That information is available online on both the bond Measure EE website as well as the school district website, the master plan itself. Those of you who might have participated or those of you for whom the master plan is a new concept, it is what, 2 years, Blake, in the making?
Oh,
Or
2 or 3.
longer? Yeah, probably. It's certainly pre-pandemic, so that means 3 years in the making for the analysis and discussions and groups of folks that came together to discuss options for progress in the district. So appreciate all of that and looking forward to being able to operationalize the master plan, which is certainly dependent on passage of Measure EE. Just so you know, too, community, that obviously all the board members are volunteers. And so in addition to volunteering as a board member, our newest board member, Rebecca, is doing yeoman volunteer work for and taking her expertise that she has out in her work life and bringing it to extra good use for the district. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. I also wanted to compliment the community on the attendance at the various back to school nights. There's droves of people attending these events, and I think everyone's hungry for communication, for fellowship, for meeting the teachers in person, for having a chance to be literally back to school. So thanks to our community for participating in those events. Thanks for the teachers and the staff for making those events available and so valuable for everyone. I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. I echo many of the comments from my colleagues. With regards to the master plan, I think we have poster boards, Blake, going on probably at each of the entry points, Kansas, Cabrillo, Burnett, and Dana Middle
Correct.
School. So as parents and community, you can see what's taking place at your respective schools.
That's right.
Correct.
That is correct.
Fantastic. I also just want to take a quick moment to thank Rebecca for spearheading the bond campaign. I know it's a lot of work, and as Roger says, there's a lot of work still remaining. So thank you. I appreciate that. And then I also wanted to just take a moment to thank the Wiseburn Ed Foundation too for the event. That was a great event. I had the opportunity to attend, as so did Dr. Goldman and Dr. Silvers and many of our cabinet members here. It was a wonderful event. It brings the community together, and the WEF Foundation does so much for our school and our program. So thank you to the WEF Foundation. And that's all I have. And with that, I think we'll now go to our Director of Psychological Services, Dr. Mozzarella.
Thank you. I have nothing to share tonight, so I'm going to pass.
Okay. And from our Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Dr. Doolittle.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just have a HR update in terms of staffing. And so since June, we've done a lot of hiring. So we've hired 21 new classified staff members, and that ranges from instructional aides to custodians. So the whole gamut of CSEA members. And then for the certificated staff, so this is teachers and other certificated staff, it would be 18 new staff members. And so the HR department has been busy with not only just hiring and recruiting, but also onboarding those individuals. And so with that, we're in a good place, but we also have some priority, what I'm referring to as priority vacancies that we're still looking to fill. And so one of those is a new IT manager. And with the IT manager at the next board meeting, I will be bringing to the board an update in terms of consideration and change in the classification of the IT manager to align with the job qualifications and the duties and responsibilities we're looking for. And so I will bring a package to the board in terms of the job description and what sort of candidate we're looking for. The IT position is difficult to fill, especially when you're working for a school district. So there's that. We also had a recent resignation for the school site office manager, formerly the site secretary. And so we are ensuring that we want to make sure our schools are supported. And so we are actively recruiting for that position. And then at the district office, we are still looking for support in the payroll department, in the accounts payable department, as well as looking at how to better service our departments in terms of clerical support. And so just wanted to let everyone know that we are re-examining the roles of the district office and seeing how we can best support all of the departments with the staff that we have and potentially increasing staff as well.
Are you thinking of another job fair?
We can do another job fair. So our instructional aid positions, we're looking pretty good and on filling those. The positions we have open right now are at a different qualification level. So in terms of like say the accounts payable, we are looking for folks that do have accounting experience, right? The school office manager looking for a candidate or an individual that does have clerical experience and can manage a school office staff, right? Or school office in general. And so these types of positions are a little bit more unique in the qualifications and classifications that we're looking for.
The other positions that you mentioned that you have hired, would you care to give an idea about what percentage of staff that represented, you know, in terms of those categories or in terms of those part of the workforce? Because it sounded like a big number in terms of percentage as well.
It's about a 10 to 12% increase in staff. So a lot of these are either positions from retirements and resignations, and so replacement positions. And then on the classified side, many of those are positions that were unfilled last year, especially the instructional aid positions. And so those are positions that that were open or vacant most of last year and were filled with agency or staffing agency positions.
Thank you. That's a really a lot to do for onboarding and for assimilating folks into the workplace too. So that's a big job for everyone, not just to hire, but to help people be productive. So thanks for that.
And Nisha, I had a question about diversity of the hires and how we're ensuring that we're recruiting folks who are people of color or have other diverse qualifications for the positions, and whether that has been something that we've targeted. I know I've heard folks comment on the hires of the teachers that there was not a lot of diversity, in terms of people of color that were hired. So can you talk a bit about what we do to make sure that we're recruiting folks?
So that is absolutely an area of growth for us. It is in terms of intentional recruitment of folks, a diverse workforce. And so we are continuing to look at that in terms of how do we diversify our work staff and how our staff can be more similar to the students that they're working with. And so as we continue to recruit, that is something that we're being more intentional about. And then also on the side note of that is to ensure that we do have the most qualified candidates in front of our students. So it's a balance act, but we are looking to expand that and ensure that we are recruiting at the college level, community level with job fairs, and ensuring that we do have the most qualified candidates in front of our students.
I think some of the outreach too, to very, I know, I guess historically LMU had been a very been a good, I guess, pipeline, a feeder for our district, but we have made, and we love LMU. I'm a big LMU, go Lions. But I do also believe that branching out and diversifying our recruiting outside of just a school or a couple schools and doing a broader search is also better. So wanted to look at that as well. And I know Nisha's worked really hard on trying to develop partnerships with other schools, other universities, so that we can really attract a diverse pool. And it's a work in progress. It really is. And it's a challenge. It's something that we challenge ourselves with and really want to get better at.
Thank you, Dr. Google. It's certainly challenging finding staffing across all industries. Dr. Harbutt, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
You could have used you have a
I have a
presentation.
presentation. Good
Sorry.
evening. I did bring a few slides tonight. I wanted to provide the board with an enrollment update, and I did prepare some slides tonight. If you remember, enrollment ties right to our assurance of organizational strength, where we're sure that we have a full enrollment every year and that we're maintaining our staff and our programs at all schools. So this year, we have a new permanent acceptances. I like to do a comparison here. So if you're looking at 2021, we had just about 205 students who were accepted on new permits. That means they came from districts outside of the Wiseburn Unified School District on a permit from their district, released from their district. This year, 162 students. So our permits have gone down. Our permit releases, and those are families that have asked to go to other districts other than Wiseburn. For TK through 5 in 2021, we had 35 students. For high school, that would be 8th graders asking to go to high schools outside of our district. It would be 22. This year, both numbers have gone up. We have 68 students in the lower grades their families asking to release, and 50 students in the upper grades. I want to point out your highest point of release is kindergarten, families who have never attended our schools. So it's very interesting across the nation. Actually, 6th grade is where you find the most movement in families when they move, things change or whatever, or they make those decisions to go elsewhere.
Eileen, you mentioned kindergarten first and then 6th grade. So are
Sorry.
you saying that, can you just clarify that?
Yeah, kindergarten and 6th grade are our two big points. If you look when families move around and change districts and leave districts, it's typically kindergarten or 6th.
Is that true of these numbers?
This number represents permit releases, so that means that they are in our district and they're going somewhere else.
But in terms of the grade levels, in terms of
Mhm.
being released, are
Right.
they also that kinder and
Yes.
6th grade is the majority
But
of
your
these
highest-
numbers?
Right, yes, those would be our highest numbers.
So just for clarification. Perfect. Reading TK to 568 students, are you referring to sixth grade there? or
I'm sorry,
Everything
TK to
says-
5, yeah, 6, I'm sorry, that should be TK to 8.
TK to
Sorry, I
eight,
apologize, that's a mistake, yeah,
and then it's sixth grade that we're seeing.
right. So TK through 8 would be 68 students, I apologize. And then high school 50. So our total enrollment this year, though, is up. So we had 22470 last year, this year 2,472. Our movement from 8th grade to Da Vinci is at 88%. That's a great number. And we base that on the number of what we call cumulative records requested by high schools. We do that every year. We'll be asked by different schools in the area, but Da Vinci also requests. So we maxed out on 282, which is a great number, 88% going to our Da Vinci high schools.
I have one more question about the overall numbers and how to think about them. So if our total enrollment went up, does that mean that, and our permit numbers went down, does that mean that we had a natural increase in the number of students who were
In residence.
eligible, who are residents?
Yes, and you'll
Okay.
see the next slide. So you'll see in the blue, starting at the bottom is our 2021. We had 1,473 residents and 997 permits. And then it changed in 2021 up to 1,577 and 872 permits. And then this year, 1,568 residents and 901 permits. So you see an increase in our residents. If you want to look over time on the left, in 2016, 41% of our students at the very bottom there were on permit, and we're down to 36%.
I don't know if you know the answer to that.
I'm sorry.
I know the answer to this question. When I look at Da Vinci Divine Science and Communications, I know the student population is about 500 per,
Mhm.
per school. What is a ninth grade enrollment? Do we know? Do we know that?
Can I ask Vicente that?
What does our ninth grade enrollment look like in terms of
Just the freshman class, just ninth graders, just.
how many?
Yeah, just ninth graders.
They constitute anywhere from about 140, 150 students per grade level for each school,
Per grade levels.
per ninth grade for each of the three schools. And then we also have, we have Connect High School, ninth grade.
Thank you.
So each year we go and we talk to people about our schools, and we like to offer this to new parents. We found this year that because the school closure and pandemics, many of our families have not yet been on our campuses. So we did have these tours open to, of course, anyone who's interested. And I sort of start off in October. We always go to the Westchester Family Event. It's a Kinder Forum. Lisa Wilberg generally goes, or Albert Perez, both principals with Alicia Galindo. Starting in November, we attend more fairs. We have our opening of continuing enrollment in January. We also start our in-house tours in January, so you kind of see a span there. Last year, we started the twilight tours in the evening for working parents and families, and those were popular. We also have them during the day, and this year we'll have also a virtual at every school. We have a total of, I think, about 21 tours across the 4 campuses, so we make sure that there's a lot of options for families. And then the 5th graders are welcome to the middle school along with their families at welcome events. And then coming in June, those TK and Kinder families come in, and again in August for anyone who missed the June or want to repeat that invitation. Some things that we did this past year that we felt were very successful in terms of communications and marketing. We went back and redesigned all the presentations that our sites provide to families, and those are online. We increased our social media outreach and our email and marketing. You'll see there, those are the presentations. You know, we found that we were kind of didn't have a consistent method of talking to our families. So we asked all the principals to come up with their top 5 reasons students love to go to their schools. And so we had some really wonderful presentations. And if you'd ever like to see those, we have those online at the schools. We also want to make sure that these first impressions were really strong with families and that they were standardized across our district. We also did a lot of outreach. We had so many people looking at our, that enrollment link on our website is the 3rd most popular. Families click. And I had to ask what clicks meant when you go through, but apparently that means when you go on or get a posting that you go a little further. You click to see what else there is. You look at the video or you go on to look. each time a family came to a tour, they immediately received an email from us as well that thanked them for coming in and offered more information. And then finally, we did some email marketing. Again, there's that post-tour touch point. We sent out 285 of those, and we had an average email opening of 87%, very high. And there's that click rate again. Usually 1% is about where you go. We got 32%. So Erica Corder, who's been a terrific help as our communications consultant, has made a huge difference in this area, and we're really pleased with that. We're going to continue growing that in terms of our website. Since it is so popular, we're going to put a little more focus on that. That's our last slide. And one more. So there's our school tours page. We use Eventbrite right now for parents to sign up. Everything's done online. And then we look for more visits to our website in the coming years. So those videos are available also on our website, the Welcome to Wiseburn, which we started just 2 years ago during the pandemic. And in a way, this pandemic offered us the opportunity to reach out to parents in so many different ways. We want to make sure we capture everybody who's interested. And I think that's it. So any more questions? I just wanted to give you an update. Happy to come back anytime and talk about enrollment.
Thank you for the presentation. Perfect.
I do have one question, and that's about the TK enrollment. Since now we have universal pre-K, how did those numbers? They meet expectations? Did we get more enrollments than we anticipated? How did that?
We did not increase. We did not increase based on the change in the birth date, the extended birth date. So this year we'll extend again and see if it makes a difference, but we didn't see a huge influx there. And because we are in class size reduction and need to watch our numbers in TK through third grade, we are comfortable with where we stand right now with that cap. So TK is fine. It's got all its students, but we didn't see a big influx.
Weren't there I'm sorry, I can't get the words out. Weren't there lower class sizes in TK? Like we were having some difficulty filling some of the classes, but now they're relatively full. So we're actually seeing full class sizes as opposed to partial.
This year, this year the numbers haven't changed in terms of what from the
last
previous, but next year we will have to see something different. We have a different class ratio next year, where it's a 1-to-10 ratio. So we'll have to make sure that we keep an eye on that and make sure that we have the right amount of adults in the room working with our students. So the law has changed. The ratio goes from 1-to-12 to 1-to-10.
Thank you, Dr. Hartnett, for tracking this. This is really important work, and many districts are going through declining enrollment. So it's nice to see that our enrollment is fairly stable from last year to this year.
Two more questions.
Yes, sir.
One is, and maybe Nisha or Nisha can answer the question. How's the meal program going? Do you have any data on that? Do we have any information on how the meal program's going? And then maybe Eileen or Sarah's here. You can add, how is the eLoop program going? What are our numbers looking like there? Or our overall extended day program in general too. So it's really 3 questions. I can repeat them. We want to start with lunch. Breakfast. I'm sorry, I meant breakfast actually.
So our breakfast program is actually going very well. We are averaging both at Anza and Cabrillo over 100 close to 100 breakfasts served in the morning. We're still going to get Dana students to eat. Maybe it's not the cool thing to do in middle school, but we're hoping that we get more of our middle school students to eat breakfast in the morning, as well as, and then 138th is doing well with the breakfast numbers. What has also happened with the Universal Meals for All is we're actually also serving more lunches in general throughout the day. And so it drastically increased our numbers for both for lunch, especially, but the breakfast program is slowly growing. And we will look at our staffing numbers based on the averages each week of how much we're serving.
Then the other was the eLoop question, Sarah, maybe eLoop, and then maybe we can separate, but Nisha, you may have the actual extended day numbers or no? The right at school numbers. So eLoop is our extended learning opportunity program. Do you want to just give a little bit of background on it?
Yeah, so it's a new program and we're piloting it this year. We're working in partnership with our friends at Right at School. It is a program that supports after school care as well as 30 additional days of childcare for our families who are most in need. So we're identifying and prioritizing our families that show the most need, our homeless, our foster, and people who qualify for California assistance. And we are sending out emails and getting them enrolled as quickly as possible. We're working with Right at School, for staffing to ensure that the proper ratios and of supervision are maintained. So we're slowly onboarding this, and next year it will be a quick launch so that we can have everyone who needs this program. So we're sending out emails to people who qualify, and so please do not reach out if we will reach out to you if you qualify for the program. We currently are at enrollment of 150 students.
Do you remember what the anticipation, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
what the anticipated like qualification number was? I mean, you're then 150 enrolled, but how many kids qualify for you?
So currently, we're working with just straight from the state direct certified students. And there are about 250 direct certified students that will be qualifying for the program. Next year, it will be open to all unduplicated students. They're still kind of figuring out the parameters of that. But next year, it will be all of our unduplicated population. And I don't have that current number on the tip of my tongue right now.
We can bring that back. I mean, we'll be presenting that basically.
So new program, state funded. is that right?
There is state funding.
State funding. Okay, does this replace, there used to be a program, LAF, was it LAF or? Is this kind of along the same lines? It could happen years ago and then kind of faded away.
Go ahead, sir.
It faded away. Yeah, it's still around. It's more of a preschool program. And Crystal Stairs is still around. So there are still some programs, but this one's was brought forth by the governor just this last year.
This seemed more as a response to the pandemic and potentially looking at the learning hibernation and learning loss, element and trying to provide for students that may be at risk, the opportunity to be at school longer and to have access to certain enrichment and curricular support that would extend it beyond the school day. So just lengthening that day for students. The funding, I would sort of echo what Sarah said, unfortunately, the state hasn't, so they've committed, but they haven't committed enough. So, districts are sort of backpedaling and having to really reevaluate the program. I mean, it's enough to serve this year's students, but the funding on an annual basis doesn't allow for much expansion, yet we have more numbers of students or larger numbers of students, that need the services and would benefit from it. Probably all students would. So anyway, we're really trying to reconcile the numbers and reconcile the program to those numbers. Makes sense.
I have another question. And this may be an unrelated question. With the enrollment numbers that you had, is this the first year that the choice blocks are shown as residents?
No, it was last year.
It was last year? Okay, good, thanks.
No, it was this year. July 1.
I believe last year, though. I can check on it, Joanne, just to make sure.
Just curious,
Yeah.
because I was a little surprised because the resident number stayed more the same than I would have expected with those families being included. Okay, thanks.
It was the one question for Nisha about numbers.
I'll bring back the total numbers at the next board meeting. The numbers I have are from August. And so I do think there was a huge push after school started and the bell schedules were released of increasing the right of school numbers. So I'll bring those back.
And I am looking, actually, maybe we just have right at school do it, because I know I sent a message out to them. I want to schedule them on the board meeting too, to come out and do a quick presentation, or, a comprehensive presentation to the board, just with numbers and their program and that kind of thing. We haven't had an update from them in a year or so, so it'd be good to get them in. So yeah, it's part of the plan.
Superintendent Dr. Silvers.
I have questions for myself. No, So I have some updates today. I just want to say, thank you to WAF. I also want to echo the feeling of just really gratitude. the Ed Foundation. It was a really nice evening at the Manhattan Beach Studios, a nice event. It was really nice to see the families out there and just having fun. It was a fun event, and just knowing all the work that Debbie and Marilyn, and Aaron, and I'm going to forget people's names. So I don't want to just start naming everybody because then I'll forget somebody. So I just want my hats off really to the WEF team for putting together a really nice event. So thank you for that. Also had a chance to join Rebecca last night at the Wiseburn Watch meeting, and got to share as you know, Rebecca shared, I was able to share some updates on our facilities. And the more I share, the more excited I get about the future of our facilities and kind of just what that would do for our community and all of that. So really excited there. Last night as well. So it was last night was the watch. Last night was also our back to school night at 138th Street School. So really nice there to see, just seeing the energy and the optimism and the positivity that's abounding at these back to school nights is really nice. It's really nice to see. And maybe it's just 2 years of not having it. Really this was the first back to school nights in person in 2 years. So really nice to see those back to school events. Also want to thank Daryl George. He's the city manager for the city of El Segundo. On September 14th, he invited me to be part of the State of the City for the city of El Segundo, and also want to thank the mayor of El Segundo for his comments about Wiseburn and just the support. He made some really nice comments about robotics programs and just really nice to be a partner in a city. So just wanted to thank them as well for that. Also want to confirm, I received confirmation from Kiana at Dana that trips are underway and being planned. So this will be the first year back, kind of, to some degree for our trips. I know 6th grade is planning to go to Pally Camp. Forget where that is, but it's up in the mountains up there off of I think in the same the backside of isn't it? And yeah, the Angeles Crest Highway or Crest Highway. So they're doing that. And then we actually have the Catalina trip again. We're able to extend those numbers to 150. We also reached out to Catalina. We're trying to keep bumping those numbers up because we know we did have a small wait list last year or the last time we went, but we want to try and get to no wait list. But we have to work on some of the, just the occupancy numbers there. And then of course, the DC trip will be coming back this year as well. So really excited to send those students that can go to DC as well. So things are coming back to a little bit more normal this year, and it's just really nice to see that. Also want to share too, more on the side of school businesses. One thing that we've been evaluating as we've started the school year, especially with the new full day schedules for our elementary schools, is trying to make sure that the schedules are right and that they're that we didn't miss anything in the scheduling. And so one area that we're really focusing on right now is the recess time and just trying to see if there needs to be some adjustment. We're pushing back a little, pushing down the road just a little bit, but we may come back to the board with a recommendation at one point. Take a look at our recess time. We'll have more of a recommendation. I just want to let you all know that that's something that we are exploring and examining right now. And then also another area that we're really looking at is our website. And I wanted to end with that because I would like to bring back an item to our board meeting on October 13th. The current theme that we use a program called Frontline. It's a website program that actually we've done a lot of work on the website. It looks much nicer than it may have looked, a few years ago, but that theme is now out of date. And so we have to re-up. Basically, we've had it 4 years and we're at a point where we're going to need to sort of re-identify ourselves in our website theme. And so I probably will be bringing back a $15,000 to $20,000 cost to transition over to this sort of newer model of a website at the next board meeting. So we're working on that. Do want to thank Erica as well for really outlining. We're sort of architecting this. Is that even a word? We're building this. It may be. I made it up. But we're designing. We're designing for the back, on the back end, really designing the structure and the architecture of this website to do it right. In the past, it's a lot of putting things in with, and I don't want to say not thinking about it, but we're really going to build this out based on data, which I was really appreciative. Erica brought to us, looking even now at our website, what pages are used the most. And So we're able to build this with data and not just build something that we think looks right. You know, we're using data-driven decision making. Anyway, wanted to share that with the board as well. That's all I have.
Thumbs up.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Silver.
Sure.
I think we're moving on now to action items. First item is general 6.1 item, adopt resolution for the textbook and instructional materials compliance for 2022-2023. Thank you, Joanne. And that was Rebecca, correct?
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did we?
Yeah.
You give a thumbs up, okay.
Now we can see him. So,
Action items and next one is facilities 7.1. Consider approval of the proposed delivery method lease back for the Career Technical Education Program grant applied for by DV Schools through Wiseburg Unified School District. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve. I do have some comments that would go with that motion
Okay,
that I can bring up during the conversation of the discussion.
okay. Do I have a second and then we'll turn it over to Roger?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. And Roger? Any comment?
Just briefly, just a couple of comments in general, then I do have some comments on the documents themselves. So this is a request for qualifications for the process that would allow, in this case, the district and DaVinci to put an RFP out to solicit proposals from contractors or lease back entities. This is for the construction of the CTE studio, for which DaVinci has received a grant from charter school funds. And they're also going to be funding the balance of the construction. So that's just in general. This is a very typical, in terms of the history or the reason this is on our agenda for review. Wiseburg as the authorizing agency and as the owner of the property, the contracts would flow through Wiseburg. That's why they're on our agenda for approval tonight. Comment in general, I think a lot of thought has gone into this delivery method. So I think this is the right delivery method for the project and doing it under leaseback. There are some very unique elements or components for the delivery of this project, like the actual construction of the modular structures that I think leaseback in terms of that procurement flexibility that allows the district. I think it's the right call for the delivery method. There's a lot of other delivery methods like design bid build and which is more your lump sum low bid, which doesn't give you any flexibility in it. So I'm in complete support of the delivery method that was chosen. So thank you for that. Now I do have 3 comments in terms of the documents and based on our experience or my personal experience and my trustee colleague here as well, Nelson, in terms of construction management. I have three recommendations on the RFP and on the documents. First one is regarding the actual exceptions to the contract. The second one is regarding the fee proposal. And the third is with regards to insurance requirements. Okay, so I'll start with the first. I start with the first one. In the RFP, which is the request for proposals when it comes in, and I'm particularly looking at, let's see what page was this. This is on page 9. Page 9, paragraph 8. Maybe if you could bring that up real quick, so just so that everybody can see that.
Which document?
So this is in the RFP. I think there's 5 documents in our board packet attachments, but this one, I don't know what it's called, but in terms of the file, but it's the request for qualifications and request for proposals. Okay. On item 8, that paragraph right there, I think it's great in terms of the requesting the contractors, if they have exceptions to the proposed construction service agreements, for them to disclose the questions upfront. So excellent. That's what we want, right? I'd like to add I'd like to add 2 sentences to this language. The first one being that as a continuation of that last sentence, there was a section E, we could just add for the district's review and consideration, which the district may or may not accept at their discretion. Which it's implied, that's pretty typical. But I'd like to make it very clear to the contractors that just because they listed it in the document, doesn't mean that they're gonna be approved. Right? And then the second sentence would be, is that any comments that the proposers, the contractors, do not submit at the time of their proposal, they will not be considered, period. Right, because what, in our experience, and right now in the construction industry, we have had some situations where the contractors have not disclosed those exceptions until after they've been selected for the project. And then you're entering into a weird dynamic where they've already been selected, notices have gone out to the other contractors, and then you get all these contract qualifications or exclusions, and then the districts end up losing time. This project has very tight timelines and deadlines. My recommendation is that we are not entertaining any of that. These are the district's contracts. They can either choose to submit on the contract or not. Right? And if they like to state what their exceptions are, they're obviously welcome and we're open to seeing those. Right? So I just want to make sure we're clear with the contractors, and it is an item on the criteria for evaluation process. So once you evaluate that and they come in with comments later, maybe they wouldn't have been selected. That's why I'm saying, let's not entertain those comments. I recommend that we could have those two items in there.
Roger, could I just so that, to introduce Nancy Bartolo, sorry. Thank you, Vicente, and I did ask that Vicente show up today, and he brought Nancy, who's been really involved in this. You want to introduce Nancy, though? You probably do a better job than me.
Yes, I would. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. To my left is Nancy Bartolo, who we brought on board as a project manager to assist us with numerous projects that seem to crop up, within the Da Vinci world that we're engaged upon. The big one right now, CT Studio, the one that she's also assisting with diligently right now, the soccer field, and other projects as they come up, the sandbox, the cafe, and things as they come along. So Nancy Bartolo just finished a gig with Hermosa Unified School or Hermosa School District with Superintendent Johnson, and in terms of redoing and reopening 2 of their schools. And I had an opportunity to see the work that was done there. It's very impressive. So any of you ever have a chance to drive by there, definitely check it out. You can see Nancy's handiwork there. I bring her to you today because she speaks your language. She understands it way better. She actually, was able to do the definition of leaseback. I needed finger puppets. She did not. So it's a good thing. So at this time, I'm going to let Nancy respond to anything and agreed. Yeah, anything that we do for clarification, definitely want to make sure there's in there. So thank you. Thank you for that. And Nancy Bartolo.
Thank you for the opportunity to work with Weisburn. I'm really excited about these projects. Like Vicente said, we just finished Hermosa Vista 2 years ago, and Hermosa View working with Dr. Johnson. I don't know if anyone has seen the schools. Absolutely beautiful. They're amazing, state of the art. Really looking forward to bringing some great staff to Da Vinci and working along with this team. So thank you very much. I'm really excited about these projects.
Since Vicente mentioned, can you do like a few minutes on just a high level this definition of leaseback?
Yeah, so
I didn't bring the puppets.
Okay, somebody needs to do that for me. Thank you.
So rather than dealing with the competitive bidding process, it allows us to choose our own general contractor. So through an interview process and a point scoring process, we'll evaluate with a panel the best fit for our team. So as opposed to a multi-prime where we would hire multiple contractors, we hire a general contractor to bid. So it's a design build project. So we would hire them to build the contract. I would work with them as a construction manager. We manage all those duties between the 2 of us. So we don't need a construction management team. That would be me and the general contractor.
Why is it called leaseback?
So what we do is we lease the property to,
Meaning,
well, Weisburn would lease the property to the general contractor, usually for $1 per year. And they build it, which is an investment to Weisburn. After the project is completed, they will sublease.
who they?
general contractor will sublease the project back to us for a term of 40 years.
Us being
I'm sorry,
back to us.
back to Weisberg. I'm sorry, I'm so used to Da Vinci.
Okay,
And then for a term of 40 years, usually 40, and then it'll just dissolve into the ownership. So when the project is completed, like I said, we'll have the project leased back to us, and then it dissolves, and then it now becomes an investment to Weisberg.
and the advantages are what?
To not have a competitive bidding process and eliminate the low bid. So we choose the general contractor as opposed to getting multiple bids and having to have the lowest bidder, which isn't always the great choice for us. So we get to choose. We interview the general contractor, we interview the team members, and we see if that is a good fit for us. So we're allowed to make that decision through the lease back.
We are who?
I'm sorry, Da Vinci. I need to get used to Weisburn and Da Vinci. So Da Vinci would make that decision as far as whom we choose to work with our team.
Does Weisberg get involved in that, or how does?
I'm not sure what the relationship is. I know that we are on leased property. So I believe on the panel, it would be great to have a Weisberg person. It would probably be essentially me, the architect, a representative from Da Vinci, and a Weisberg.
So one of the things that Nancy's still getting used to is the fact that we're dealing with two boards, two entities. That Weisburn is the property owner, that Da Vinci leases the property from Weisburn. So even in the initial documents where she was, straight up it, we had to make some edits because it needed to reflect that Weisburn is the owner.
The owner.
So as we go through this, there's always that learning curve of which is Da Vinci, which is Weisburn, and which is both. So as we keep going through it, that's where the expertise of, people like Roger Nelson and even Blake on your, who's been instrumental in helping to make sure we get the right terms in the right places. We kind of went through this when we were going for the architect, bid for the architect, making sure that we define who goes where, when it's Da Vinci, when it's Weisburn, when it's both.
So Joanne, I reviewed I reviewed the lease agreement. That's one of the comments that I made in notice of written in a Da Vinci fashion as the owner, and actually we coordinated through our legal counsel, and it actually everything's changed. So now the owner is Weisberg. So it's a unique situation, as Nancy and Vince indicated, and just to kind of go a little further on the lease back model. So Education Code 17406 allows the district to use an alternative delivery method as opposed to the public contract code for the competitive bidding process. What that gives the district is the flexibility to actually go out and pick contractors that are very experienced in K-12 or higher education. So your pool of contractors are highly qualified and have school experience. So that's one of the advantages of this delivery.
The supposition being that these same people wouldn't bid or wouldn't be likely to be able to be selected if we went into a competitive bidding process.
If you went into the competitive bidding process, the public contract code indicates that the district has to select the lowest responsible bidder, not necessarily the best qualified contract. You have to select the lowest responsible. So it's just different.
And who decides, once again, who is the choice? How is that selection made?
Through a panel. So we would create a panel, and then it's through the interview and scoring process. So there's multiple items that have a certain score, and we would score them based on their performance.
And in the past, we've included people such as a facilities director for Weisburn. So in this case, Jonathan Nava might be one of the individuals who's asked to be on the panel. If Blake, Dr. Silvers has anyone that he recommends to be on the panels, we work with him to see who to further represent Weisburn and make sure that, and we've had parents on the panel as well who are architects as themselves are involved in the construction business, so they're very knowledgeable. To try and get good stakeholder input as well during the process.
And are we being asked to approve this approach before we know who this selection panel is?
Yes, this is one step to get us closer to be able to do that, because we can't just do it, right? We have to have this approved so that we can then, we have to, the next thing is we have to get this publicly 2 weeks. 2 weeks it has to be publicly put out there through, for example, the Daily Breeze. And according to the new procurement methods, a trade paper as well.
Yeah.
So that we are fully compliant with all the methods related to the lease back delivery system. I can't believe I actually remembered that. Wow, that's right.
On the panel, ideally, you'd like to have between 3 to 5 in the selection panel. Anything more than that, quite frankly, is it's too many folks, too many spreadsheets, too many numbers to tally. So I think with Bud Lake and yourselves, you can work together to get a cross-sectional panel to have some input there. But the criteria that's spelled out, there's a 1,500 point scale system within this RFP. So the board has to actually approve this RFP with this scale system, such that that selection of that contractors is still very open, transparent. This is what they're going to be graded on. This is how they're going to be selected on. So there's really no preferential treatment, if you will, for the contractors, because they're going to be scored based on firm personnel, relevant experience, pre-construction, safety, and all these different items.
Objective evaluations, though.
And that's the point of the best value, because it's not only based on price, although price is a component of it. So they do have to provide their fee, and actually I have comments for you as well on the fee, just for future evaluation. It would aid in future evaluation.
I believe that's negotiable also, the fees with the general contract. So we're not happy with the price. We can also, try and reduce that down, as well as when they bid their subcontractors. If we don't agree with that cost, we can also ask them to rebid.
So there's a budget that you're working towards, right? There's a cap on a certain amount of funding.
That's correct. So
Okay.
along with the lease documents, it's called a GMP, or guaranteed maximum price, which we agree on. We usually have a built-in contingency that will allow for changes within the project, but built into that GMP, guaranteed maximum price, that the general contractor cannot exceed. So we have an agreement on the cost up front.
Is that same agreement applied to a schedule? Is that all tied together, cost and schedule?
Yes, and then the contingency monies that are left over belong, are returned back to the district. Or they would be returned to the
Owner.
The owner, yeah, the owner.
Sorry, just excuse my ignorance, but why the 40-year lease? Where does that come from?
It's usually standard. I mean, we can say, I believe we can, say how many years we want that lease to be, but I think that's pretty standard.
But I think as this process moves forward, because these are the template documents, once you actually get the dollar values and the GMP, all of these documents, the contracts will be coming back to the Da Vinci board and to the Weisberg board for approval. This is just to enter into the process to allow you to select a contractor, then subsequently bid the project, develop a GMP, and then come back here for approval prior to fully executing that contract. At that point in time, I think what we're more accustomed to seeing is like you said about the lease and the sublease. In the lease, like you do lease out the property, but once because the contractor takes control of the site, they have full access, full responsibility for the management of that site. But then within that contract, you can stipulate that the lease back portion, when it comes back to us, could be 2 years. It doesn't have to be a 40-year period. So I would be looking at, once they're done with that project, that just would revert back to the district.
Typically the duration.
But you're also correct in that a lot of districts, it's a best value system. So if a district, for example, can't afford all the monies up front to construct the project, right? They could enter into a 4-year lease. So payments cover the span like a mortgage. You pay for that project over the course of 40 years. But in this case, since Da Vinci has the money, with the grant, as soon as that project's over, you close out the sublease, it comes back 2 years, or I think right now you're looking at 12 months of construction, right? So in 18 months, that project's back, or the lease is back. Right, so it's not like your 40 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
depending on the term.
but it's, think of it as, it provides for that, for future funding. If a district doesn't have the funds, you can still move forward with the project, and there's your funding vehicle plus interest, just like a home loan.
But for this project, we would be able, when this comes back, then those terms would be the kind of details that would be ironed out and brought before this board for approval, and then brought before the Da Vinci board for subsequent approval.
Who's responsible for?
Who's responsible if there's any overruns?
No, I,
Financially.
financially, it would be probably Da Vinci.
No, probably is not a good answer.
Well,
Who is it?
I would say Da Vinci.
Well, usually with the guaranteed maximum price, there shouldn't be any overruns.
Right,
So,
in the best of all worlds, right?
and then again, there's a contingency built into that GMP where we could use it for changes within the project. So not to exceed the GMP.
So I think to help answer that question, Joanne, I don't recall exactly the board date, but maybe 6 months, 8 months ago, this item, when Da Vinci received the grant, this item actually came before the Wiseman board for an approval to also accept the grant. It's like a joint agreement there. At that point in time, we approved the project to move forward with the architect with the understanding that with the charter school funds and that Da Vinci would pay for the balance. So the answer is Da Vinci. Yes. Because Wiseman will not be financially contributing to the project. And I think that like that must have come 6 months, 8 months. I don't recall the time frame, but that has come, that was on. That has been before.
Any overruns would
The
be
cost is with
Da Vinci.
But as the owner of the site, we're directly involved because contractually, Da Vinci would not be able to enter into a lease because they don't own the property. So we have to do it through here.
And is there a time limit? As I recall, there was some sort of time frame in which the funds, they had to be spent or committed or something, the grant. What is that time frame?
October 27th is the date by which the DSA approved plans are to be submitted to OPSC. Thank you. I always get that acronym. OPSC, October 27th. So currently the plans, we just received notes back from DSA. And we have the structural engineer is working on the notes to reply. We have a question that went to the methane mitigation engineers because of the methane issue that we have on this campus. And so that's being addressed right now. The goal is to ensure that the architects are working diligently to get answers back to DSA as soon as possible, because as Roger pointed out, time is not our friend right now. So as we're moving forward, this, if everything keeps moving the way it is, we are still on track to be able to get this DSA approved plan to the agency by October 27th.
And October 27th of 22.
Yes, 22, yes.
What happens if you don't?
There, we run the risk of losing the grant. And we've already looked into the possibility of discussing an extension if we start to see, if we run into any stumbling blocks between now and October 27th. And we've worked with the King Consulting Agency. And fortunately, Nancy also has worked with OPSC and is ready to engage in the process of putting in a request for an extension if necessary.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes.
So we don't need to meet the October 27th deadline.
Currently, we do. Do not lend yourself to procrastinating like this. Don't give me that option.
But that's the submission of the document.
Yes.
You see that?
Yes. No,
These two things are running.
this is still beyond the other, but we have to do the October 27th. Make sure the plans are there. This is so we can start the process. And this was recommended by the architectural firm that we initiate this process and get it going so that we can keep the process of construction and everything done in a timely manner.
So Nancy is also, you're the manager of the lease back project itself?
I am the construction manager, so I'll work alongside with the general contractor to build. So together we will manage the project. So usually a construction management team would be brought in, but we would together will do the duties of the construction manager and eliminate the need for that, and also cost savings.
Do you feel comfortable with what's trying to be built with the budget?
You know, I just came on under 2 weeks ago, so I'm getting familiar with everything. I don't know the cost of that. I just received the drawings, so I'm going to work with the architect to educate myself a little bit better on the building itself and the cost. So as far as feeling okay with that number, I'm not really sure about that number, so I would have to do some investigating.
So in order to evaluate the bids, you certainly need to have some comfort level, some knowledge and comfort level with funds available matched against what's to be built, right?
That's correct. Yeah, and then we'll do a cost comparison between all the different companies based on their general conditions, which is their monthly costs. So we will evaluate those costs also and see if that works within our budget, as well as the percentage that the GC general contractor requires to build the project. So all of that's negotiable.
And you've seen the architectural plans that are already I don't know if they're already submitted or if they're in pretty mature form at this point. I would imagine if we need to have them done by the 27th.
They are currently with DSA. As Vicente said, comments have been provided. So SVA Architects, whom I worked with at Hermosa, is currently responding to those in a very timely manner. So they feel pretty good, I think, about getting those comments responded to and us getting approval by October 27th.
Okay, thanks.
Roger, do you have anything else? Next question I had was with regards to attachment 2. And this is the e-proposal, which is the first component that you'll be receiving once you shortlist from the firms that submit for interview. The e-proposal is only going to be provided by those that you shortlist. That's based on the RFP criteria. So it's also in the RFP, Wendy, same document. This doesn't have a page number, but it's like the third to the last page. There is once they come to the interview, they'll bring this form to you, right? The fee proposal.
That's correct.
Item number 2, it requests their lease back fee, and it's just one line item, a percentage. My recommendation on this one is so that you can meet in your evaluation of that fee proposal, is to request 4 breakout line items that constitute that lump sum, that overall percentage. You know, I'll just share those because I think it'll be very helpful when you're doing the actual evaluation of the overall fee. One breakout is overhead. The next one would be profit and fee. Those are one and the same, profit and fee. Some folks call it profit, others call it fee. The third one is insurance. The fourth is your bond cost. Then as you're evaluating, then every lease back contract, so you'll provide those 4 breakdowns that are on that form, and then when they submit it, you already have it. All right. And that's been very, very useful in the past for us in terms of an evaluation, because you get to see the breakdowns later. It helps you with the schedule values for the entities as well.
What does bond cost mean?
So there's a couple of bonds. There's a payment and performance bond that they have to, there's a fee that the contractors pay that says that if it's like an insurance of the bond, if they can't perform the job, then the district can cash in the bond. The bonding company comes in and finishes the bond.
Okay.
So on the overhead, would you suggest a breakdown on that or just the lump sum on the overhead?
I just think just a lump sum of those 4 items. Anything more than that is a little bit too granular, but yeah. I think with those 4 breakouts, I think those are good.
Okay.
Then the third one I mentioned was about insurance requirements. This was a little bit more, I guess, extensive. This has to do with the RFP. The RFP mentions Charter Safe as the insurance carrier, right, that for on-site construction activities, right? That follows into the construction services agreement. It has a lot of details, a lot of prescriptions, right? I'm not a fan of district insurance providers, like for example, for construction projects. I'm not familiar whatsoever with Charter Safe, but the equivalent of the K-12 side is ASCII. Right, so obviously I'm assuming it's very similar and there's a different policy, right? I'm not sure that we actually get a value from from that type of service or the actual credit from those exhibits that we're requesting from the contractors. Because the RFP is saying, contractor, for all on-site construction activities, you don't need to provide the insurance. We, through Charter Safe, will provide that. Anything that happens off-site, you do have to carry all of those insurances anyway. So how much of a credit do you really get if they still have to have policies in place for off-site? I don't know. It's never penciled out in my analysis when I've done those. I'm not really sure that we actually get a credit. And ultimately, with all insurance documents, there's gaps. So what the contractor ends up doing under the insurance line items, they always provide what's called gap insurance. So whatever for themselves. So whatever that, in this case, Charter Safe doesn't provide, they insure it anyway. Because they're not in them. They're going to mitigate risk. So you're going to see a lot of, I guess, maybe some odd numbers with that. I'm just, so that's the gap insurance. There's another one that the requirement here is builder's risk. So say, for example, if that building burns during construction, right? Charter Safe has to replace it. Not that contractor or their insurance policy, because that's on-site. I always find like multiple points of accountability are not good. I'd rather have a contract with one individual, you give me your insurance policy, and this is how it's gonna run. So and for you to sort it out later as to whose coverage is who's doing what, like again, if I don't know Charter Safe, and how that would be handled, we sent in with that. Their program also has mandatory requirements, for example. And if I'm probably Nancy, I'm looking at you here because they also have some very specific requirements for EMR. If you're familiar with experience modification ratios, if they don't have a 1.25, they can't bid the job. They can't participate. But that's not coordinated in the RFP yet, because if they're not at 1.25 or less, they're out. But that's not coordinated within the Charter Safe policies and the RFP. So recommendation is proceed without Charter Safe and have the contractors bid the project, they provide all of the insurances, and they give you the insurance costs and all those breakdowns for you to evaluate the fee. Because honestly, I don't know Charter Safe, and for us to really do a deep dive as to what the coverages are to make the district also comfortable that we're covered, like, that's a whole different process.
Weisburn's insurance, and the insurance that covers, that Da Vinci uses on the A-skip version of the insurance that covers Da Vinci and when their operations was Charter Safe. So when she asked for, who do you have? That's the name I gave her. So the recommendation is to take Charter Safe off that and just have the contractor provide the insurance for both onsite and offsite.
As a contractor be fully responsible.
And we're allowed to do that. So that's totally.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
In our, at least in my experience, what occurs is you have a contractor that comes in and, well, like Roger said, the contractor is gonna is gonna mitigate the risk. So he's gonna cover the entire project regardless. So the district is paying basically double the cost because you're paying the Charter Safe cost, and the contractor is also saying, you know what, we're gonna cover ourselves regardless, right? So you're paying kind of double. And then what happens is if a situation does occur, you got this problem, and that's the point of right. Yeah. So just put the full responsibility on the contractor.
Roger, kind of just clarifying question. So it's not charter safe specifically, you would have had the same recommendation, should this have been A skip or Keenan or something like that. So it's just having those dueling.
We've had the same
This
recommendation.
project, it was fun. They said no to that.
So another question then would be, you mentioned recommendation, but I think that we're looking at, we don't want to approve this contract without these edits to the contract? Is that the suggestion? Is that the recommendation?
Charter state.
Okay,
And it required contact all the insurances, which are actually the values are stipulated in the RFP already for workers' comp, builder's risk, and all those items. They just have to do it for both onsite and offsite. That's what I'm saying.
I was gonna suggest that we redo the motion with, Roger's recommendations. Inserted, if my colleagues are okay with that.
And I was actually a little confused by the way that item read on our agenda. Where'd it go? Because it's to consider the approval. And I wasn't quite sure what that meant on the agenda. So we're considering it. Are we also being asked to approve it or not?
yes, yes.
I wasn't sure of that wording.
It was just to not say to approve so that the board it's the board's consideration. I didn't want to predetermine that. So maybe the language came off wrong. I
I
don't,
thought we were talking about it and then at a later board meeting, you would actually vote on it. I didn't understand that.
okay,
wording.
I'm sorry, yeah,
I think it sounds like time is of the essence. So
Right.
I think that your point, I can certainly.
Right.
understand around it. It would come back when you say consider.
Right.
So, so my recommendation is that we re-motion this with Roger's recommendations. I think there are quite a few comments that Roger has, so
Yeah,
he might
that's
need
why
to,
I'm
he
very.
might need to share the notes with you.
I'll recap it. I just,
Okay.
because when I opened the motion to approve, I said with 3 items, right? So I'll re-summarize it for that. Okay, right? So based on that, and I am gonna, before I do that, I'm gonna come back because, when we were looking at this fee attached, is that the? Yeah, if you could scroll down a little bit, Wendy. Right there, actually right there, it's fine. The lease back and I gave you those 4 items. If you could add another paragraph in there, just how you have the general conditions to stipulate that you want the upfront fee for builder's risk insurance. Because right now, all these documents say that charter state carries it. So there's gonna be some edits to the documents, and we can always circle back after this, but let me make the motion. Because I think it's there, it's just the one item is really with charter safety, the first 2 items are minimal. Right? So the motion is to approve the submitted documents with the 3 following stipulations, to change the documents. The first one was as it relates to the exceptions to the lease-back agreement, which was to add the language that the district will consider and review all the submitted language that the contractors proposed. The second one was to add a sentence that says any comments not set forth at this time of the submission would not be considered. That was the first one. The second one is to modify this lease-back fee. Attachment 2, to add the breakouts or request the 4 breakouts, the overhead, profit and fee, insurance and bond costs. Those 4. The third one, similar to this now, is adding the section of requesting a breakout for the builder's risk. Right? So the original third was now the removal of the charter state. And all those requirements now make it that the contractor provides all the stipulated coverages for onsite and offsite without the involvement of charter state. So those are the 3.
I just want to come forward and say that I'm really uncomfortable on voting on I am uncomfortable voting on something with so many stipulations and changes tonight. I don't like it.
I'm okay with it. I know what Roger is referring to here, and I'm comfortable with it, but I obviously know this.
I'm comfortable with Roger's suggestions.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable they've been included in what I'm going to vote on. That's the difference in my mind. But I think that Roger's motion is contingent on making those changes. That if the changes aren't made, then we have not provided approval for the RFP.
And that would be correct. And
Right.
we've done this before, not necessarily for this, but we've made,
We have made changes to documents in the past and sort of given a tacit approval, expecting that these changes would be made. These are quite a few more than we've done. We usually do a little bit of wording. This is a lot of change. I'm just saying I'm not comfortable, so I'd probably vote against it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is, the good thing is it's not me running point on this. So far in the last week and a half, working with Blake, we've dealt with a number of changes already. And I would say that I'm very comfortable knowing that with the changes that Roger has suggested, that we would be able to incorporate those quite readily and pretty quickly into the scope of it, having seen the entirety of what was submitted. And we would have this in place already without question.
I guess I'm also wondering whether, Joanne, if you would feel more comfortable if you had some assurances from them that they don't have any issues with the changes that Roger suggested. So I'm just asking Vicente and
Who wrote this?
Who wrote this? You have an attorney who wrote this, or how did this come about?
It's a template from, that we used over at Hermosa through Atkins and Anderson, who are the attorneys for Da Vinci.
And we actually
It's a
did,
standard, or Weisberg.
we actually did then submit it to our attorney for full review.
Oh, we did?
Yes, yes.
And the two items with regards to, the first two items, just the language on the exceptions and the breakdowns on the profit. Those are more for clarity, more procedural. The one big item that I'm recommending is the removal of charter. So that is okay. The other two are more for to aid in the evaluation criteria, which is already a part of the RFQ. The way the project is insured, right, that is a substantial change, right? Because, but it's better to do it now than to do it later once the RFP is released.
So what we're talking about is changing a document that our legal firm has already approved. And we're asked to approve it without the legal firm reviewing it again. And it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't like it.
But before it goes out.
I mean, I understand everybody's feeling good about it. I don't feel good about it. Yeah.
Could I ask just a question, Vicente? If, what's the super rush? I mean, so I guess we have an October 13th board meeting. Is there would that make it not work? I mean, is that something that if we fix these documents, sent it back and then brought it back to a meeting in 2 weeks, that it would not work? We miss deadlines. I mean, what's the risk?
That's a very good question. I know we have as part of the submission, there was a timeline that was included in this. And so far, the one thing is, again, we've been trying to keep everything on track, on par with the submission to OSCP, OCSP, OPSC, good Lord. And so this is why and again, this was based on the recommendation of the architect SVA to get this process started underway as soon as possible. So.
And as soon as possible is fine, but that's not a date.
Right.
So when do you absolutely have to have it? I don't feel that since we've gone to all this trouble with prices, you've had Atkinson review it.
Right.
Roger and Nelson have comments on this. I totally respect the comments. I absolutely believe in the changes that you're being asked to be made. But we're being asked to approve a document that's already been reviewed by legal. Now we're changing the document. We're being asked to approve that document without further review by legal and a stamp on it that says, yes, the changes that you've asked to be made have indeed been made and they're here. And I just feel even if there is a rush, I don't like it.
Right.
So what's the date that you really need this?
There's something I'd have to look at the timelines that we established here. If you're saying that the next available day would be October 13th, and if that's when we have to push it to, my only concern would be whether or not postponing this would affect the submission or what we're doing for October 27th.
Right, I just don't like being rushed, I don't like it, I am not happy with what's going on.
No, we've tried to do everything as, as best as possible. I understand having it reviewed by legal already. The
And then
only-
making all these, what to
Yeah.
me feel like substantive changes in a document, I just feel that it's irresponsible. I don't like it.
And I think the only thing that I would say is because of the experience that these two gentlemen
I'm
have.
not questioning the experience, I'm questioning what the document looks like, once you've included what
and
he
whether or
said,
not legal-
that it's stated properly, so that when legal reviews it, and says, yes, you made the changes in such a way that they've actually been stated properly. That's my concern. It's not, I'm not questioning Roger's expertise or anything.
Right.
I'm just questioning that we already have a document. Who's gonna make these changes? Is Atkinson gonna review it again? And if they do, what if they make changes to those changes? Then what do we have?
So there is a timeline in the documents that were submitted. I'm curious whether Roger and Nelson have an opinion about the timeline and the impact.
So our next board meeting would be what, October 13th?
Right.
Right? Right now you have a mandatory project walk scheduled for October 10th. So you would have to kick that back because you can't
Yeah.
publicize the RFP, you don't have the document, that's
Right.
Today's the 22nd, so it's about 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, see, I'm not, I don't feel pressured because you have a timeline that's now suddenly appeared here. I'm not gonna feel pressure for that. I can't help that.
But the question was asked is can you? what's
Right.
the impact? Kick it
Right.
back. So there would be an impact, but in terms of scheduled activities, but is it an impact to the overall process is where I was gonna
Right.
ask you. If 2 weeks is not gonna make it and it makes it, and everybody's more comfortable by you going back, making those edits, bringing it back, then there's no repercussion if you're or impact, right?
Mm.
So that's the question for you,
I would-
because I don't know what the deadline is.
Yeah.
Your
When you
GMP,
want-
you're not gonna have the GMP. Right now, based on the selection, is November 17th. That's of the contract. The GMP won't come in for another 3 months. So
Hopefully
you
not
could
3 months.
potentially make up a couple of weeks here and there, or a week here and there too. Depending on when you have to have those monies encumbered for OPSC.
Right.
That, I don't know, I don't have the sunset date.
And that's where I would defer. to-
Can I call the question? Can we just call the question on the motion? Or I don't know if there's further discussion is gonna, I hear what you're saying. It sounds like there's wiggle room in the timeline potentially for us to wait a couple weeks. Sounds like Joanne would be more comfortable if we waited a couple of weeks and got these changes made and then reincorporated. So I'd just like to call the question on the motion.
I'm gonna go ahead and motion to remove the item. Let's go back. Let's go ahead.
You're asking Roger to withdraw his motion.
So, well, I guess Roger motion, so let me go back to Roger.
So there's a, from my opinion, I think what you can. I'm comfortable with the documents and with the motion. I don't think they're as substantive for the changes. I think you can make those. Plus, this is gonna come back to us at a future board meeting when it comes time for the contract and all those changes that I just requested. If they're not incorporated, that GMP won't be approved anyway. So the risk is really on you and your date. You will lose the funds at that point in time.
Right.
So if you don't incorporate those dates, these changes, because I'm not hearing an objection, obviously, right?
Yeah, no
If you're saying
objection.
no, then that's a different conversation. We need to
Right.
talk about that, right?
Right, and I know Rebecca brought that up in terms of our agreement. Every single one of the changes, we're in
I
full
mean, I don't
agreement
think I'm
with.
asking for anything. Yes, there's work that needs to be happening with that charter say, but I don't think they're insurmountable that you can't get done, quite frankly,
No.
in a few days. Because the other ones are more clarification. So unless I hear something different from you, I'd like to leave the motion and have our board vote on it so we can move forward, because I know this is gonna come back to us.
I just feel this puts me in a really awkward position because I'm gonna have to vote no. And I don't like voting no because I feel it's confusing and I'm not against the project. I'm not against the lease back concept. I'm against voting for the contract when, or this proposal, whatever the right term is, when it's not in its final form. So my vote's gonna look like I'm against the lease back project, which I'm not,
Joanne, you can also abstain.
but I don't
Just
wanna
saying, I
abstain
understand you
because
don't
I'm
wanna
gonna
abstain,
vote
but-
no. I'm just saying, I'm voting no, and it's not a no to the project.
Okay, we have a motion.
Give it a second.
We have a second. I think Rebecca, that was you, so.
Hold on,
Wait.
Dr. Goldman.
Neil has something.
Oh.
What did he say? He's abstaining. Abstain. Okay. The Roger is a Neil's abstaining.
Okay. Okay,
So
so
I have a
did you
mo-
call the question?
So we have a motion, right?
Yes.
We have a second.
We need a second.
We need a second. Or, and I'm deferring to you, Rebecca, because you had,
Second of the original motion.
Right.
I would prefer that we withdraw the motion and consider it at the October 13th meeting, but, so. I guess we can call the question on this, and you're gonna have,
No, not a second.
I mean,
No second.
I can,
Right, if there's no second, it's over, and
Yeah.
it doesn't pass.
Right.
Yeah, there's no further discussion on it.
so I'm gonna withdraw my.
So-
second.
So, let's see here. So we did have a motion on the table, right? Because otherwise we'd have never entered into a conversation.
right,
We're not allowed to do that based on the Brown Act. So I guess the original motion was the documents as is.
So we could vote on that. Neil's abstaining. So do you want to call the question on the original motion? You don't have a second on the redraft motion.
Which I thought I made that in order to enter into the conversation, but.
I would have to go back to Wendy, because I do not remember doing a motion on as is. It was a motion with,
You said you had
Rogers.
comments,
Yeah,
but I didn't
comments.
understand that the comments were to make substantial amendments to the document.
It was moved to Rebecca, second the initial, and then there were comments, and then it
So,
was.
okay, so if the motion is only for the documents as is, then I don't like having the skip, I'm sorry, not skip, the charter state, I don't believe in that. So if that's actually the record of what my motion was, then I'd like to withdraw the original motion. Because I don't think that's in our district's best interest to have the charter state. However, I think moving it forward based on the other motion, it didn't get a second. So there's no further discussion. So I'd like to withdraw my original motion if that's the record, Wendy. So then I'd like to withdraw that because I'm not in support of the charter state. I don't think that's the right course of action for us. Without a lot of discussion in terms of our legal counsel. And in this case, it's interesting because both legal counsels are fine with it. So,
Okay, so
interesting, right?
the original
But-
motion has been withdrawn.
Yeah.
There, the redrafted motion that does not have a second. So we're done.
Okay,
And you withdrew your second as well, which we need to show for the record.
Yes.
You withdrew your.
If the original motion is withdrawn, I'll
Okay.
withdraw the second.
All right.
We'll talk to you on the 13th.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll make the changes. We'll bring it back on the 13th after it's been reviewed by legal.
Yes, thank you so
And
much.
that will hopefully give you the peace of mind that you were requesting from
Really
her.
appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
all right. Let's move to, action items. Where are we back? Where are we at? 8.1 fiscal. This is miscellaneous receipts and purchase orders. Do I have a motion?
I can motion that.
Thank you, Joanne. Do we have a second? We're on 8.1 fiscal
Yes.
item.
This is the
eight-
miscellaneous receipts.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you, Rebecca. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Right. Do I have an eye from Neil? I got.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is consent items.
I'd like to move that we approve 9.1 and 9.2.
I'll second.
Thank you, Joanne. All in favor?
Hi.
That concludes it. That concludes our meeting. Any upcoming events, Blake, that you would like to discuss or mention?
I'd like to show my new events calendar.
Right.
Dr. Goldman, I'm going to show my events calendar off. Let's look Oh, it's on your calendar, right? So, yeah, upcoming, we are working on a Right at School presentation. It's not on here yet, so I'll have to schedule that in. But looking at the 13th, we're gonna have our first, presentation from principals, elementary school. We're also gonna have a communications update and goals, on our communications plan. I believe Erica will be joining us for that. Then we're gonna take a look on the 17th, we're gonna have our middle school presentation, so focusing in October on our school presentations. Leading into, the school year, really wanting to set up the school year, the principals will then come back, and towards the end of the year, as we've normally had presentations at the end of the year to kind of do a closeout on that, so. Looking forward to those, also in October, we're gonna have our STAR assessment, achievement level presentation. So Dr. Goldman, that would be in line with the STAR presentations. Sarah will come back and give that. We also have the closing, October 31st is officially closing the first interim. So we'll have our first interim, we'll then prepare our first interim report and bring that to the board for consideration in December.
Great.
That's it.
Awesome. See Neil smiling about the calendar as well. All right, well, thank you. I think that concludes the board meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Adjourn.
8:14.
Yeah.